What's up, everyone? On today's video, I'm going to show you how I created my Toy Story 2 Zurgbots. I made them two different ways. One of them is just printed in raw plastic in the correct colors, and the other one I painted. I also put electronics in it, so he can light up here, and his arm also lights up. They're both fully articulated. They twist, they roll, their arms move. So I'm going to show you how I created those. So having said all that, let's get into today's video. For those of you who don't know, this character is a little bit of a deep cut. It's really only in one scene in Toy Story 2, the very beginning. It is when Rex is playing video games. It's the opening of Toy Story 2. Rex is playing a Buzz Lightyear video game, and he's flying around having to defeat Zurg, and there's a bunch of Zurgbots chasing after him. And the only ones that got made, I think, is like a little Mattel figure. I don't know the exact height, but it's pretty small. So I had never seen anybody make one before, so I wanted to go ahead and create one. And I did want it to have the full working lighting effects and, of course, articulation. So this project was quite the undertaking because I had never put any electronics in any of my toys before. So it took quite a bit of trial and error. This one I already made a while ago, so I don't have footage of it, but I just made this one a few days ago. So I'm going to walk you through how I made this one. And they both have the exact same parts. This one just also has a whole bunch of electronics inside. So I'm going to show you how I made this one, and then you'll kind of be more familiar with the internals of him, and then I'll get into explaining how I created the extra features for this Zurgbot with the working electronics. Got a few clips of the parts I'm printing. It's a pretty straightforward print, which is nice. There's not too many parts compared to like some of the other toys like Rocky. It's just because it's so big, it can take a day or two to print, but there's only 4 colors for each bot, so it's pretty easy to go ahead and print. All right, jumping right into the next step is just removing all the supports off of these parts. Nothing really too difficult, but with this bottom piece here, there are a few things I have to be mindful of, or else I'm gonna very easily break it. There's like 2 weak spots or weak sections on this, right in the middle where that silver ring is. Since the bottom of this part is so heavy and the top part is so heavy, there's just so much like stress placed on this little joint, and especially because there's 2 different colors right there, it can make it even a little bit weaker. So I just have to make sure I can't apply too much pressure. I need to kind of whittle away at the supports to make sure they come off easily without, if that piece starts flexing at all, it's just gonna break, and I've broken a couple of them. And there's also gotta be worried about on the bottom, like there's so many supports right there, and nestled in there, there's like 4 little things that stick out, which is where the wheel axles slide through. And if I'm not careful, again, those pieces will also snap off. So I have to kind of like, again, chisel away at it to make sure I can pull apart the supports without wanting to bend those little pieces. So just because with all of that to worry about, it kind of maybe takes a little bit longer, but eventually I'll get to it. It's better to be safe than sorry and take a little bit more time with it. But all those pieces are off, you can see what the bottom looks like. So in the past, I've used like little metal axles, which you would see on RC cars or something like that. But I realized but it's really hard to cut through them. Like I have to pull out a Dremel and I'm cutting through metal, and it can be a little bit of a mess and take more time. And I realized these wooden dowels I have will have the same exact effect, and I can cut them real quick with my cutters. You can see how much faster it comes together. All I'm doing here is cutting the axles to size, and I just need to let them stick out just a little bit because I'm going to put these covers over them, and when I glue them on, it'll cover that up. And just by letting them stick out a little bit, it gives a place for the cover to pop right over to hold it in place. What I'm going to do now is let that dry overnight. I could definitely keep going, but I've learned it's better just to like let that glue I just used technically has a 24-hour cure. So it's typically better to just not push it and let it glue overnight. As long as I'm not rushed to hit a deadline, it's always better just to kind of like slow burn glue these things together. Now that that's glued, I'm going to go ahead and keep removing supports. The supports off the arms are going to come off pretty easily. and quickly. There's not too much to worry about. Same thing with the little rings and the hand pieces. Removing the supports out of the chest piece, or like the upper body piece, whatever we're going to call it, is pretty difficult. You're going to see me struggling at it for a minute. Because I designed this to feed electronics through, I had to be kind of particular about how I designed the inside. And it can, especially when we're going for movie accuracy, it can be difficult to create enough access points to remove stuff. And since it ordinarily, like, I could probably not use supports, but since we have articulations, I need the joints to work really smoothly so I can, and if I don't have supports, the holes can sag a little bit and then things won't move as freely. Also, you'll see later the like shoulder joints, they're not at a perfect like up and down 90-degree angle. They're slanted a little bit, so that also makes accessing stuff a little bit weird as well. If I wasn't worrying about like movie accuracy, I would just create a much bigger hole in the back, but I don't even think there was a battery holder in the movie. You'll see like that toy was really just never designed to be exactly a toy. It has like floating parts, things that aren't connecting. It probably doesn't have a battery holder or switch on the back. So I try to like make things as clean and practical as they probably would be if they did choose to make these toys. So I didn't want to make too large of a compartment on the back, larger than I needed to. So it kind of takes a lot of like picking and prodding through all the different holes I can get to get all the supports on the inside removed, but eventually I will get there. Now that we have all the supports removed, it will be time to assemble everything together. I like to use a quick setting glue for when building this, so that's why I'm using my glue gun, and I just use like an extra strength glue so it's strong enough to hold together permanently. I've tried to use like other glues in the past, but when they don't set super quickly, these like especially when we get to the shoulder joints, it gets pretty problematic because they're not at a 90-degree angle. They're like slanted downwards. So while the glue is drying, the arms want to just slide off. So I can try to like use tape or use clamps, but it gets pretty difficult for them to hold on to there. So I just find it easier just to use a quicker setting glue, and then I don't got to worry about it. So the way the upper body part attaches to the bottom is just that one peg on the inside, so I can just fill that with glue, shove that through, and that's gonna set pretty easily. That one's pretty straightforward. It's always easier to glue what I need to on the arms before I attach the arms. So I'm gonna get those two hand pieces on there. The left arm has the claw, and then the right arm has what is typically the laser attachment, but on my electronic version, you'll see what that actually looks like. Once those have dried, I'm gonna go ahead and just attach those to the pins that I have run through the shoulder joints. And I just kind of gotta like keep the pressure as tight as possible, because just any looseness on these joints, the arms are just gonna wanna fall down. And once those are dry, we can go ahead and glue the head on, which is pretty straightforward. It just sits on there on top. It always gets a little bit stressful at this point because I permanently glue everything together, and once I've start covering holes, like where to put the head on, put the arms on, I start losing my access points to the inside. And especially when I put glue over the back piece, then everything is permanently attached and I'm not getting back in there. So it's at this moment I just kind of pray nothing really falls apart the next day or during shipping, because it's kind of about as good as it's gonna get. But after all that, it is fully done and assembled. So let's go ahead and jump back over to the electronic version. Now that you've seen the insides of this Zurgbot and all the pieces that it took to put him together, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how this one works. So on the back here, for starters, to get him on, there's a light switch. Of course I can't see. Okay, so the light is on. So he has a LED strip of lights up in here, and he also has this one LED at the bottom of his hand, which is supposed to be like his laser. So this one was pretty challenging to get the lights, mainly because he has to get this visor so high up into this tiny little point, but I also need to get enough lights in there to be able to get the correct like scrolling effect for his visor, because I was able to get 4 LEDs in there, and that's about as good as it's gonna get. And in order to get the like scrolling effect where it looks like the light's going back and forth across his visor, I bare minimum needed 4 LEDs. Anything less than that, it's just going to look like alternating lights or blinking instead of like a light going back and forth. Because what it does is it takes like every, I can't remember, I have to look at, I think like every half second or whatever, the next light over, like there's 4 lights. So this one will light up, then this one lights up, and this one lights up, and this one lights up, and then it goes back and forth. But the trick to this is once this one lights up and then you go to the next one to light up, this one doesn't go all the way, doesn't turn all the way off. It'll go to like half brightness or quarter brightness. So it looks like there's a light trail behind the one that's actually lit up. So then that way, that effect kind of makes it look like there's actually a light moving when it's just really individual lights lighting up. Of course, the way they designed this, there wasn't very much room to get those LEDs in there. But I was able to get my 4, and the easiest way to do this was to use like an LED light strip. You see them all the time. They're actually the same lighting strips that are under my case here. They're just a lot more condensed. I could have sat there and maybe like wired up something even more compact, but I don't know how to make my own circuit boards and stuff like that. So this was the easiest solution I had. It's run by an Arduino. The arm was a lot simpler because it's just a single LED. So that LED can be wired straight to the batteries. The only trick here was that it runs at a different voltage than the Arduino and the light strip. So I had to, and then also this is kind of a weird voltage, it's 5 volts. And I wanted it to use regular batteries. In the past I had used like the button batteries, but it can be difficult to, like, you don't always have those batteries on hand. It's like always, of course, the batteries you don't have. So I wanted to be able to use like AA or AAA. So I've got 4 1.5 volt batteries. But since the Arduino's on 5 volts, I had to lower the visor up here down by 1 volt and over here by 3 volts. So I'm not someone who knows how to do all this stuff. So it took me some research to figure out how to do like the wiring diagram and stuff like that. But I was able to get that worked out, and I'm pretty happy with the lighting. Shit. Of course, I just launched a mini Zurgbot into my cat. Anyways, so for the most part, the painting process was just the same as I would do any of my other parts. It's having to sand down all these layer lines, filling them, sanding them, filling them, sanding them. It's a whole lot of work. And because of that, I also decided on this project to do some of my own casting. For the little Zurgbots, as you can see, this is them, like, I've actually already started sanding this one. And as you can tell, it's still pretty rough. It has so many small details that it takes like to sand properly, and it can be really tough and time consuming to get them clean looking, especially without breaking anything. This is so fragile. So what I had decided for this time around was, since I was doing electronics for the first time, I thought it would be a good idea to also learn how to do resin casting at the same time, which became a whole nother thing. But it actually went surprisingly well, especially because this is not an easy thing to cast. It can be difficult to get, because what happens is you pour it like this, and you gotta I poured my resin down through a mold, and the hole was here. You have to get this resin to fill up the bottom and fill up the arm and all these little grooves, and without getting any air pockets, because if there's any air in there, it'll trap, and then the resin, like if there was an air pocket right here, the resin would fill up to here, and the air would just sit there and block any resin from going out. Kind of a miracle that I got this to work out on my first try, actually. But so you can see, here's the mold I created for the mini Zurgbots. And this is 2 halves, so they fit together like this. And actually I poured it in from upside down, so it would have been poured like this, but for ease of the video, we'll turn them upside right. So as you can tell, there's so many intricate little details, getting the arm all the way through there, all the little grooves, his little hand. It's just, there's so many small details you want to capture. Kind of a miracle I got it to work out, probably, since I had no clue what I was doing. This was actually what I used to cast my mold. I got one like really sanded down, really clean, but it turned out super good. Now, I haven't done any new castings lately, and I still need to do the castings for myself. I had made a couple for other people. My mold seems to be in pretty good shape still, so that'll be another project for another day coming up. I also casted the wheels. The wheels were black, so I also didn't want to make something that if I painted it, just rolling it around, it would scratch up the paint and look terrible. So I decided to cast the wheels in black, so then they didn't even need to be painted. I just clear coated them afterwards so they'd have some form of protection on there. But the mold was pretty straightforward, and it's just the wheels. These were the ones I had sanded down. So I sanded these down, poured molds for them. And then whenever I wanted wheels, I just pour my resin through these holes. The smaller ones are the air valves, because what happens is there's air trapped in here. So as the liquid gets poured in, you want to wait for the air to come out, like on my Zurgbot one. This one's a lot more straightforward because you're just pouring straight down. It's got flat surfaces. There's nothing really too weird. The only thing hard enough is getting these gaps in the wheels lined up correctly so it pops into the slots here in place. So for the most part, the rest of the pieces are, like I said before, they're all exactly the same. We can take a look on the inside. So let's take a look on the inside. You can see I've even made it so the back pops off with screws, just like any other toy you would get. Anyways, you got your 4 AAAs right there, which makes it nice because it's one of the batteries you're always going to have. The Arduino sitting right behind this. I made kind of like a harness where like the front side I could glue the battery holders to, and then on the inside part I was able to like mount the Arduino. I wish I like made things a little bit more removable. If this ever breaks on the inside, I'm basically probably gonna have to make myself a new one. This was my first project, so with electronics, so that's all right. So at least I was able to make the back panel removable with screws. Has these like brass inserts, so you could do a screw without stripping the plastic, which is cool. The only like design flaw on this was I didn't leave enough room for each screw. So you can tell like I already broke one off in the corner here. And these 3 are just like, it's so thin around the hole that it was just a bad design flaw. It was pretty tough. Like, it's just tough getting all the articulations correct and getting everything to move quickly move correctly, because you can't have everything too loose that it just kind of like wobbles and flaps around, but you can't have it too tight where it doesn't move at all. So there's just always tons of trial and error to get the fittings correctly, and especially with the wiring. Just making enough room for up top, or creating channels for the wiring to get all the way down here to the arm where his arm could still move without the wiring like bending and breaking over time. So if that's my only flaw, I'm pretty happy after this project. I'm super happy with the accuracy of this one. I feel like it's pretty spot on. Ironically, the only thing that isn't perfect is the rings around his right hand. This metal bar right here isn't supposed to be there. It's actually like floating. And there's not supposed to be any pegs in the back. These rings are just floating. And in the movie, which is obviously not practical. They probably never even intended for this to be an actual toy, since we never saw it again. So I just hid these 2 pegs in the back so I could attach it to the arm and you wouldn't really see it. And then just for stability purposes, to keep it straight, I also put this bar right here. And at home, and it's just gonna sit in my display cabinet, that's enough support where this thing's not gonna break. When it comes to like shipping these things to you guys, it's just not enough. It's guaranteed to break every time. So I did put an extra, on each side there's a bar going down just to support this and make it a more solid piece. It's not really noticeable, but it's just kind of one of those trade-offs. Like, we'll even see it with like toys they sell in the store, like from Thinkway and our signature collection stuff, and we always get upset when certain things are changed here. But it's just like one of those things, like when you're actually producing toys, especially when they're doing injection molding and stuff like that for like actual toys they sell in store, it's just different manufacturing processes. It's just not possible to do any angle or any type of design. So there's kind of always trade-offs, and I do have to deal with that at times when I'm trying to create my replicas. Luckily, like with 3D printing, you have a lot more flexibility than you would with like injection molding or any other types of manufacturing processes. So I do have a little bit more, and I'm not like mass producing anything. So I do have a lot more leeway when designing stuff, and that's probably kind of one of the main advantages I have with 3D printing. If we take a look at Zurg, you can see they pair up pretty well with Zurg scale-wise. In the movie or the game, they are just a little bit smaller than Zurg and about the same size as Buzz. So I believe I made these to be the exact same size of Buzz. So they match up pretty well with Zurg, which is cool. And as far as the little gold Zurgbots go, pretty basic. When it came to designing them, it was pretty easy because it's the exact same parts as this one. So I basically just permanently attached them. I never even bothered trying to get these to move or putting working electronics in them. They're just too small, and they don't really make too many poses. Because they're not even, in that one scene, they're not even there the whole time, and they eventually pop out. So what I did is I just made this like these holders on the top, and if you can see, there's a magnet in the bottom of each, right here and right there, there's a magnet. So what I would do, there's no magnet glued in there right now, but I would just glue a magnet in there, and then that way these would just pop in and out. And they would hold their position, and I didn't really have to worry about them moving too much. Oh my gosh. And of course my other cat is here. All right, so you were definitely in the way. All right, anyway, so and then I had to put an extra, since the left arm is always down, and I wanted to just make the same gold bot for each side, I had to put a hole in the top over here. So then that way the arm could go inside, which is fine. Well, at least I thought, I didn't mind it because I just have my stuff on display. So you won't see the hole if it's on display. So it'll just look like he is sitting like that. So all in all, I was pretty thrilled with this. It's one of my favorite toys that I've made so far, just because it was a big learning experience. Like I had to learn how to do lighting and electronics, and it's always satisfying when the articulations work like you want them to. So that about wraps it up for the Zurgbots. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to be covering a whole bunch of other projects that I've done in the past, as well as I've got some cool new ones that I haven't made yet, which I'm really excited to go ahead and do. Let me know also if there's any specific videos you're wanting to see. I've got a lot of other cool stuff I've made. Like I can show you guys how I make rib tickles, my Bo Peep lamp. So a whole bunch of characters. Let me know if there's any characters you guys want to see that I haven't made yet or nobody's really made yet. I'd love to get to some of like the small fry toys. There's some pretty fun and ridiculous characters in there. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.